Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest today is the Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammad Shtayyeh. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Shtayyeh, there is a new Israeli government, probably the most right-wing government in Israel's history. Does this mean that this is the end of the two-state solution as we know it?
Well, by all means, the whole settlement program was designed to destroy two-state solution. And settlements have been constructed not during the terms of this government, but what you will see now is the total erosion of the 1967 borders. You will see aggressive approach for the colonization through the intensification of colonization programs, and also what they call the legalization of more than 85 different new settlements in the West Bank and around Jerusalem. So by all means, this government, as you rightly said, is not only radical, but actually it does include some people who have been charged with criminal charges, some ministers. And quite a number of the members of the Knesset who have been recently elected are actually settlers. So it is a group of radicals, yes, but also some people have been charged with corruption, some people have been charged with criminal acts, and so on. And by all means, the design of this government is they want to settle the issue for once and for all.
Annexation,
the issue of
do you think annexation is what they want?
I think they want annexation, yes, but for us, every single settlement is a proposal for annexation. These people are loud and clear of their intentions. Ben Ghafir has been assigned to be responsible for the Nakab area, the Galilee, as well as the West Bank. This means that there is a total erosion of 1967 borders. But still, the two states is there on the table. If we don't handle it tomorrow, after tomorrow is going to be very late.
Right. Obviously, some of the ministers have said the Palestinian Authority, we don't want it anymore. Do you think that there is literally an existential threat on your Palestinian Authority?
Well, look, my dear Mark, first of all, the Palestinian Authority is not a gift from the Israelis to us. It's not a gift by the international community. This is something that has been achieved through our sacrifices, on one hand. Secondly, you are right. There is a war that has been launched on us, the war on land and geography, the war on people and demography, the war on narrative, and the war on the finances of the Palestinian Authority, which is putting us under a difficult situation.
You're a bit near bankruptcy?
Not really, but we have not been able to pay full salaries for the last 3-4 months simply because the Israeli illegal deductions from our finances. Israel is actually deducting more than 250 million shekels every month, which is putting us under a very difficult financial situation. Now, we are here in Europe and there are some money coming and also some money coming from some Arab countries, not from every Arab country. But I think we will be able to walk through this because our people have been really showing resilience and showing resistance and tolerance. So the people in general are very understanding of the financial situation that we are in.
Concretely, there are steps that you've talked about in the past, saying, renouncing the Oslo agreements, cutting off security cooperation with Israel. Is this now clearly on the table for the Palestinian Authority?
Yes. This is on the table for the Palestinian leadership. And I think if this Israeli government is going to cross certain red lines, I think we have no option but to go to this direction. Is not only that.
What are the red lines? Because you've threatened in the past, you've never done it.
No, you are right. But we have taken decisions. The Palestinian Central Council has decided that we go into this direction. And also, Palestinian leadership has decided to choose the right moment. Now, of course, with this government, if they continue with this killings, with the settlements, with the incursions into Al-Aqsa Mosque, with the colonization, intensification of the colonization program, these are red lines. But also the occupation itself is a red line because today ICJ is going to give an advisory opinion. The Israelis have been claiming that Israeli occupation is temporary. Now the court is going to say it seems that this occupation is not temporary, is going to be permanent, and therefore the international community will be asked to look at things in a totally different direction. By all means, this Israeli government is crossing the red lines already. The threat for Al-Khan al-Ahmar, the incursions into the mosque, as I said, they already announced the legalization of 85 settlements. Now, for us, we are going into the direction in which that we will not continue to live with the status quo. The status quo is unsustainable, is intolerable, and I think we need to break the status quo.
So, realistically, could you announce that you're cutting off security cooperation with Israel in the next few months?
There is a package of measures that has been discussed by the Palestinian leadership that includes 1, 2, 3, 4, including continuation of security coordination. This is something that we will not be able to continue with this track, because being in security that you don't get something political in return, it is a useless exercise. And therefore, this is something that is there on the table. The issue is about timing.
Right. You're here in Europe. You met with the EU foreign ministers, with the EU foreign policy chief. You've been asking European countries to not only talk about the two-state solution and going back to the negotiating table, because there's no negotiating table anymore. You've also asked them to recognize Palestine, but this is not gaining traction. Why?
Well, there are 9 European countries that do recognize Palestine as a state on the borders of 67 with Jerusalem as its capital, including Sweden and other European countries. Not new ones. But we have been here talking to the foreign ministers that, look, you all believe in 2 states. And you all talk about
really?
2 states. I think they do. I think every single European capital really believes in 2 states. The question is, what do we do to preserve the 2-state solution at a time when Israel is systematically destroying the 2 states? This is the real challenge for the international community that actually believes in 2-state solution. Europe in particular, United States as well. President Biden, when he visited us in Bethlehem, he actually stated explicitly that he truly believes in 2 states on the borders of 1967. He was very loud, he was very clear, he was very specific on this issue. The real challenge for Washington and for all of us and for Europe and for the Arab countries is that what is it that you are going to do to preserve a 2-state solution? For us, either you punish Israel for what they do to destroy the 2 states. Sanctions. Because Israel is violating international law, Israel is violating human rights, and Israel is actually building colonies contrary to international law. So you need to put sanctions, because the Israeli occupation should be costly for Israel and it should be with a price. The Israeli occupation today actually makes process. So this is one. The other is that send a message to the Israelis and say, well, look, we are recognizing Palestine as a state on the borders of 67 with Jerusalem as its capital. These are the 2 measures that can actually preserve a 2-state solution and send very clear message to this Israeli government.
Right, but obviously you've mentioned the U.S. The National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan was just in Israel and Palestine. Tony Blinken, Secretary of State, is scheduled to visit. As you just said, you've heard nice words from Joe Biden, but what about the acts? What about the deeds? I mean, the U.S. consulate in East Jerusalem, they promised to open it. It's not happening. It's probably not going to happen. The PLO mission in Washington, I mean, aren't you disappointed by the record of the Biden administration after years of Trump?
Look, we were extremely hopeful when President Biden was elected and this administration. During their election campaign, they said a lot of quite good things. In the phone call with President Abbas and President Biden also stated very nice things. During his trip to Palestine in Bethlehem, he also repeated the same things. Actually, nothing has been implemented of what he promised. The only thing that United States is doing is refunding UNRWA, which is very important to us. But they spoke about unilateral acts. They spoke about maintaining the status quo of Al-Haram al-Sharif. They spoke about settlements. They spoke about funding the Palestinian Authority. They spoke about all unilateral acts. They spoke about reopening of the American consulate in Jerusalem, which was closed by President Trump after 110 years of opening, and so on. These are not yet materialized. We are hoping they will do it.
Are they lying to you?
I don't say they are lying. I think they are not going to do it. And I think that's a big disappointment. And I think the message that we will be sending to them is that, look, don't put us in a very awkward situation. If we go to ICC, you are angry. If we go to ICJ, you are angry, and you lobby against us. We are taking peaceful measures to make Palestine's voice loud and clear in every international forum. So, either United States will really use its leverage with Israel and try to stop the destruction of two states, or we will continue with our measures, including the internationalization of the conflict, including the measures that the Palestine Central Council has been talking about. That is what we have been talking to the Americans about.
But they're not listening.
It's very unfortunately that we have not seen serious measures taking forward. The Americans, obviously, they try to keep the situation quiet. They're managing the situation, but they are not finding solutions. And I think that's a very serious issue that we need Washington. If Washington is absent from this political arena, it's not only that. It's also because we are also victims of the Ukraine crisis, because now the quartet is dead, and there is a serious political vacuum. If Washington is not going to come up with an initiative, and also, frankly, the American president is the only American president in the recent years who did not come up with a peace plan or with an initiative. The American administration did not even appoint a peace envoy. So therefore, they are not paying full attention to the conflict. Okay, now maybe from our side we need to read things in a different way, and therefore we need to exert serious pressure on the Israelis and on the Americans as well in order for them to take things or to take us very serious.
But the alternative is a third intifada. How probable is this if the situation remains in a deadlock, as you just described it?
By all means. Palestinian people are angry. Palestinian people are very disappointed. And also, frankly, the Palestinian anger comes from the fact that the international community deals with double standard. Look at what is happening in Ukraine. People, on the way they handle issue of Ukraine is one thing. The way they handle the Israeli occupation in Palestine is a totally different way. We understand that Ukraine is knocking at the doors of every European. That's true. But also, we are neighbors. We are in the same Mediterranean. We are neighbors to Europe, and every single crisis in Palestine does reflect itself directly. None one single Palestinian is with ISIS. None one single Palestinian is with Daesh. None one single Palestinian is engaged in any terrorist act in the world. So we are now working hard to try to achieve peace and justice through peaceful means. And obviously, the international community with this measure, some are listening, others are not.
There's another problem for you. For a few years, you've described this as a stab in the back. Several Arab countries have established relations with Israel. Clearly, this is probably sending a message that the Palestinian cause is not central even to Arab countries.
On the contrary, we have seen President Biden in Riyadh. Every single Arab leader has spoke about Palestine, the centrality of the Palestine question. Look what the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia said yesterday in Davos. He said explicitly, without solving the Palestinian problem, without the creation of the state of Palestine, there will be no Saudi normalization with any Arab country, with Israel.
You trust they will not change position?
Yes, we trust the Saudis. I think we do. We do trust the Saudis. They are very clear. They speak loud and clear. And we are also engaging serious dialogue with Saudi Arabia. And I think we do trust Saudi Arabia in the same way that we do trust other Arab countries. The problem today, as you rightly said, with the Israeli government, we don't have a partner in Israel. That is the biggest problem. At a time when President Abbas is a partner, we are partners with the international community, but you don't see a partner in Israel. What you see in Israel is a totally different thing, a destruction and rather than construction.
Just the last question. There is another problem weakening the Palestinian cause is obviously the division with Hamas. I'm not going to be cruel and count the number of meetings where reconciliation has been proclaimed. Yes, that's the end of it. Nothing has happened, Mr. Prime Minister. Why is this still going on?
Now, President Abbas has called for a Palestinian dialogue, and I think we are going to go into this direction to end the split and come up with a Palestinian unity government if Hamas accept certain parameters, as well as a comprehensive dialogue.
Mohammad Shtayyeh, I want to thank you very much for appearing on the France 24 interview from Brussels. Thank you very much for watching it.